All right, so we are going to solve equations with square roots. So you're definitely going to need a calculator. Real quick, remember how to do a square root on the calculator. You do second, and then you press the x squared button. To do a cube root, you press 3, and then you press second, and then you press the little caret button, and that'll make a cube root, okay? So just kind of reviewing some things real quick. When we remember, the whole point of solving equations is to get x alone, right? So since it says x squared, we need to undo that square. So the opposite of squaring something is square rooting it. So we're going to square root each side is really what's happening. So we're going to square root this side, and we're going to square root this side. So this kind of cancels out the 2, and I'm just left with x equals, and the square root of 144. When you type that in the calculator, it should give you 12. But is it just 12 times 12 that equals 144? Or could it also be negative 12 times negative 12 equals 144? A positive 144. It could be both, right? As long as it's 2 negatives, which is the whole point of the square root. So in front of this 12, we have to write a plus sign, because it could be a positive 12, and a negative sign, because it could be negative. So you write plus minus whenever you take the square root of something. When we did this before, we didn't really talk about that because we were talking about shapes and stuff. So it was just one answer, right? But now it could be either, okay? So just be really careful about that. When we're talking to find the cube root of something, we do the same thing, but because it's cubed, we take the cube root of it. So now we take the cube root of 27. So plug that in the calculator, do 3, and then second the caret button, and you should get 3, I hope. Yeah, 3. Okay. So I guess here's the important part. Okay, so get ready to type. Okay, so here's what's important to remember. When finding the square root, the answer can be both positive or negative, right? So we write it as a plus or minus, and that's only when we do the square root, okay? So that's an important thing to remember because we don't do it for cube roots, okay? Okay, so we're just gonna do a couple of examples. I think I'm gonna have you try example 1 and 2 on your own, okay? So pause and try example 1 and 2 on your own. So hopefully you paused and you tried example 1 and 2. So because this is squared, we're gonna take the square root of both sides. So we're gonna get x. Generally, we say just 5, but remember, because it's the square root, we have to add the plus or minus in front of it. Example 2 is cubed, so we should be taking the cubed root. The cubed root. So make sure this one has a negative, and that's okay. So type it in with the negative, and you should get -7. Okay? So let's be careful there. Example 3. What's a little different about example 3? Well, hopefully you said that it has this -5. So just like before, we are going to have to undo addition and subtraction first. So what's the opposite of subtracting by 5? Hopefully you're saying adding by 5 to each side. Let's cancel. We're left with x squared equals 59 plus 5 is what? Hopefully you said 64. Now we have a squared, so we just take the square root of each side. So we get x equals 8. And again, because we took the square root, we just do plus or minus. Okay? So example 4 works the same way. So I kind of want you to try that for me right now. So try example 4 on your own. Okay, so far what you should have done is -27 on each side. Then you would have gotten 216. Okay. after we get to 16, now we have to take the cube root of each side. And then you should have gotten x equals 6. Okay. So remember, you're showing all of your work. What you do one side, you do the other side. Okay. Here's our last two examples. Example 5. Okay. So we know it's x squared. So we take the square root of it. But wait, there's a fraction over here, Miss Myers. What does that really mean? Well, what that really means is that you have to take the square root of the top and the bottom. Find the square root of each of those, okay? So take a moment and find the square root of each of those for me right now, okay? And write them down in the fraction. So I'd write like x equals whatever square root of 225 is on the top, square root of 900 on the bottom, okay? So take a second to do that for me. So hopefully for the square root of 225, you got 15. The square root of 900, you got 30. Remember, it could be plus or minus. But we have a fraction, right? Can I simplify this fraction? The answer you're saying to yourself, hopefully, is yes, I can. Yes, I can simplify this fraction. 15 over 30 simplifies to 1/2. So it should be plus or minus 1/2 is what x is really equal to. So make sure you simplify it if you can, okay? So I want you to try example 6. It's the same thing, it's a fraction, so except just take the cube root of the top, cube root of the bottom, okay? Just try that right now. So when you do the cube root of negative 64, you should get negative 4. Cube root of 512, you should have gotten 8. And again, 4 over 8, we can simplify that fraction. When we simplify that fraction, it becomes 1/2, and our negative comes along. Okay, so make sure you ask questions in class next time I see you.